Hey, do you think they'll shrink us like they do in minis?
You say the strangest things.
It does seem kind of small in here, right?
The personal space guys. M&M's.
So let me ask you a question about this brave new world of yours. When you've killed all the bad guys, and when it's all perfect and just and fair, when you have finally got it exactly the way you want it, what are you going to do with the people like you? The troublemakers. How are you going to protect your glorious revolution from the next one?
We'll win.
Oh, will you? Well, maybe you will win. But nobody wins for long. The wheel just keeps turning. So come on. Break the cycle.
Why are you still talking?
Because I want to get you to see, and I'm almost there.
You know what I see, Doctor? A box. A box with everything I need. A 50% chance.
For us too.
And we're off! Fingers on buzzers! Are you feeling lucky? Are you ready to play the game? Who's gonna be quickest? Who's gonna be luckiest?
This is not a game!
No, it's not a game, sweetheart, and I mean that most sincerely.
Why are you doing this?
Yes, I'd quite like to know that too. You set this up, why?
Because it's not a game, Kate. This is a scale model of war. Every war ever fought right there in front of you. Because it's always the same. When you fire that first shot, no matter how right you feel, you have no idea who's going to die. You don't know whose children are going to scream and burn. How many hearts will be broken? How many lives shattered? How much blood will spill until everybody does what they're always going to have to do from the very beginning? Sit down and talk! Listen to me, listen. I just want you to think. Do you know what thinking is? It's just a fancy word for changing your mind.
I will not change my mind.
Then you'll die stupid. Alternatively, you could step away from that box. You could walk right out of that door, and you could stand your revolution down.
No. I'm not stopping this, Doctor. I started it. I will not stop it. You think they'll let me go after what I've done?
You're all the same, you screaming kids. You know that? Look at me. I'm unforgivable. Well, here's the unforeseeable. I forgive you. After all you've done. I forgive you.
You don't understand. You will never understand.
I don't understand. Are you kidding me? Of course I understand. I mean, do you call this a war, this funny little thing? This is not a war. I fought in a bigger war than you will ever know. I did worse things than you could ever imagine. When I close my eyes, I hear more screams than anyone could ever be able to count. And you know what you do with all that pain? Shall I tell you where you put it? You hold it tight. It burns your hand. And you say this. No one else will ever have to live like this. No one else will ever have to feel this pain. Not on my watch. Thank you. Thank you. Don't forget to subscribe to the official Doctor Who YouTube channel.
Carla Bailey here. Sorry for running late. This is a different live today, so this is not a teaching from scripture and encouragement or devotional and prayer. Lord willing, next week we'll get back to those, because Lord knows I'll be ready to get back to those. And I'll be glad to. I don't like getting to do lives like this. Let me fix this one because it's not angled right. I think that's gonna, woo, I sat on my pillow. That's not what I meant to do. All right. Okay, I think that's doable. Anyway, I don't like to get to do lives like this, but sometimes they're needed and sometimes they're necessary. So today's title is Truth or Consequences, and obviously from the trailer and the clip from Doctor Who, thank you to the official Doctor Who channel for both of those. Shout out to you guys. I'll make sure you get proper credits in the notes for the usage of those. But the only way to get across what I was trying to get you to be in the mindset of with that was to either show the trailer or show the clip of the speech. And so Abba was like, listen, he's like, I think that's going to put them in the mindset you want them to be in. So I was like, right. So let's do that. Now that if you've never ever seen Doctor Who, I highly recommend it. I'm a huge Whovian. Shout out to Doctor Who. I highly recommend you go watch it if you haven't watched it. Also, if you've not seen that episode, Truth or Consequences, it is an amazing episode, but that's not what we're on here to talk about today. I wish we were, because I love Doctor Who and that would be a whole lot easier than this is. Apologies again for running late. I had to get clean, and of course I had a girl cat who was arguing with me, and yeah, so anyway. I'm going to start with some water just because I am boiling. And this is nice and cold because it's been in the fridge. Shout out to our, I don't know if you're going to be able to see this, but our work and skills team here in the Rhonda Valleys. I was able to get that amazing water bottle by taking slow cooker class. Also, I have it somewhere here anyway. Got the certification, got the slow cooker. They give you ingredients for every single meal. It was 4 weeks long. It is free to take. Guys, if you haven't taken it, I highly recommend it. Even if you don't need a slow cooker, you can always give one to someone who does, right? But she works around, sorry, I am roasted, and I'm going to have to do this a couple of times during the video, just apologize, but I am boiling, guys. We can't open our windows because of the cats, so we don't get to do like what everybody else does. But also I think because everybody else does open their windows, I think their houses do get hotter because they let all the hot air in and then there's nowhere for it to go. So anyway, I try to cut the heat off early in fall, winter, so that it's cooler in here come spring, summer, and it tries to anyway retain some of it, but I've just been hotter than usual lately. But she works around your dietary needs. So if you are vegetarian, or if you're vegan, or if you have allergies, she works around your dietary needs. So I highly recommend it. And she gets you ingredients even if you have special needs, like even if you're like gluten-free, she gets you special ingredients so you can still make the meal. Also, I'll say this, she went above and beyond because I think I missed, I can't remember if I missed a class or 2 classes, I can't remember. Anyway, but she went above and beyond, and that was only because I didn't know about it until somebody reminded me like more than once. So shout out to my reminder friend. But she gave me ingredients to make those meals that I missed. Now, did she have to do that? No, but she did, and it was really awesome. And I have to say, every single meal that we made, I really enjoyed it. Now, also when you're getting your ingredients, if you know personally that there's something that you don't want to eat, or that you don't normally eat, or that you wouldn't eat, you don't have to include it, or you don't have to include as much of it. Pardon me, because if you know me, you know I don't care for veg a whole lot. I'm sure veg loves me, I just don't love veg back. And so I literally would put less. I'd still put it in there so it'd have the flavor component, but I put less. So anyway, shout out to that. If you haven't taken it, I highly recommend it. Let's get some drink. This is my maca from this morning, and this is my lovely, you can't see it on that one, but on the other 2 you can. How's it going? It was a housewarming gift from my dear friend, and I'm very appreciative and thankful of it. The cat on there looks like a cross between Littles and Victoria, which I think is really cool. It's cooled down a bit. I really should have made one yesterday and put it in the fridge. But you know how, like, I know they say true coffee lovers love hot coffee in the summer. But you know, like, sometimes you're just so hot and you can't get cooled down, and then you drink something that's scalding hot and it just doesn't work. That was earlier today. So, and I was just like, I literally burnt my tongue on it. That's how hot it was. So I really should have made one yesterday, let it cool down to room temp, and then put it in the fridge, but I didn't. Gotta have water chaser. We also had to have a maca this morning because we are out of milk. So I was gonna go take care of that yesterday, and then something happened that I didn't get a chance to. So anyway, all right, let's jump into the unpleasantries because yeah, I don't want to get to talk about this again on live. I'm ready to. I've been trying to move forward, but anyway, it's not always easy. Okay, so sometimes there's truth, and then sometimes, or there's consequences. I love his speech in that episode at the end. It is so incredibly powerful. He is also one of my favorite doctors. That was Peter Capaldi. He was the 12th Doctor. And he has some epic speeches. Man, I tell you. And it's ironic in a way because Abbas had me use his speeches for other things before to try to get my point across. Not as directly as this today, but he's had me use them in the past. So, and it's crazy also how they line up, which there's a whole nother, I shared on a live several lives back about how there's a direct correlation between Doctor Who and my life. And anyway, I went through, I think, and I pointed out all the things. If I didn't, I know I did it in conversation with somebody anyway. And that is only Abba because I didn't make that happen. I wish I could say I knew somebody at Doctor Who because that would be epic. I mean, as far as like on the production team, but like, I don't. The other day it was really funny because I was telling somebody to tell their idea to Russell T Davies, and they said, "You know Russell T?" And I was like, "No." I said, "No." I said, "He's just open to ideas and suggestions, and sometimes they put things out on the sites and they ask people for ideas and suggestions, and sometimes he uses them." So I was just like, I was just encouraging them, share your story idea. But I just had to laugh. I was like, no. I was like, I think, I mean, I can't say that my life would be completely different if I knew Russell T, but I think it would be a little bit different if that was the crowd I was running with anyway. Not that that would be bad, not that it would necessarily be good. I just had to laugh because I was like, no, no, I have not had that honor. But anyway, okay, I digress. Because I really, anyway. Okay, so I shared last week, so going back to the 3 that we did on Thursday, Freitag, and Catterday. So we did Booking.Nope, we did Belfast, Ireland, an overview, and then we did community and how believers should deal with issues amongst themselves. So that was the last 3. So I shared last week, but I will share it again. I will hit the highlights. Only because it is too much, and it would honestly take up the whole live to go through everything that I went through from the time I got stranded in Belfast to now. So anyway, but obviously got stuck in Belfast, Ireland. Initially was only meant to be there for that day. So I was meant to go home on the 4th July. So I was only meant to be there for that day. Only had resources up to that day. Would have been fine once I got back, but not to stay another night. So, because I needed, I was barely getting to the airport as it was. I didn't have resources for lunch. I didn't have resources for dinner. I didn't have resources for a hotel room initially. This is initially. I didn't have resources for the breakfast the next morning or for the taxi ride back to the airport. Now that's initially. So that was one thing. Also, my stepmom Glenda was trying to put it across that my dad was not doing well at all. So I was dealing with that because he'd already called me a day early for my birthday, which is weird. And I thought, why are you calling me a day early? I was like, the phone still works in Ireland. Like, what is going on? I was like, are you not going to be here on my birthday? Like, I was kind of sort of like, that was in the back of my mind all week. Plus, I had said to him, I had said to him, I'll prove to you that the phone works once I get to Ireland, I'll call you. And once I got there and got settled, I did call, but I couldn't get any answer, which I thought was really weird. And so I was just kind of like, okay, what's going on? And because, you know, I'll just remind people, and I reminded myself of this the other day because Abba's already had me, he's already had me like reviewing my videos before any of this other stuff came up, because he knew this was coming, because he's Abba. But I was rewatching a video the other day where I shared something that was really hard and really personal that I went through. And I'll just remind you, I get a little hyper when you don't respond to a phone call or a text message or a WhatsApp message or a Facebook Messenger message or an email, because Matt and I were not doing well that day that he went home to be with Abba, and I was trying to reach out to him and I could not get a response. Now, before I got home that day, I thought, oh, it's no big deal, he probably was just asleep. But when I got home that day, he was not just asleep, he had passed away. And so I'm a little bit hyper about when people don't respond because of that. Because it makes me think, oh my gosh, something has happened to this person. So when I was trying to call Dad and I couldn't get him, that was really not good, because the first thing I thought about was, oh my gosh, what if he's not answering? What if she's not answering because something's happened? He can't answer because he doesn't know how to use the phone. She has to answer. And so I was just, that was on my mind anyway. Now, thankfully, I did reach out. I had friends I was reaching out to, sharing, you know, the journey so far, sharing all the, you know, stuff that was going on. I also at that point was asking for prayer. I was also asking for brainstorming on how to try to figure all this out. I was also asking for encouragement, and I was also asking to be uplifted. Now, I did have, at the time, I thought it was a group of friends or a group of people that came to bail me out. I did have a friend who bailed me out, and I am still incredibly grateful and thankful for that. And I'm also thankful to Abba because I was able to get that friend paid back, which I wasn't sure was going to be something I was going to be able to do. Now, I will say this, that friend only asked to be paid back if Booking.com did something. Booking.com has still done nothing. But Abba said, in good faith, just go ahead and pay that friend back. So I did. I should say Booking.nope. Apologies. So yeah, so I was struggling with all of that. And then another highlight, because again, I'm not going to go through all of it. When I finally, of course, I'd been up early that morning anyway with no sleep the night before. I had to get up early again. When I say early, I mean the middle of the night, basically. I was up by 2 something because I had to be downstairs ready to go with the breakfast, waiting for the taxi by like 4 something. And I didn't, you know, want to be late because you have to be at the airport like 2 hours before your flight, the puddle jumper flight. Now, if it were a longer flight, like if it was from here to the States, it'd be 3 hours. And there's a reason for that. You know, sometimes everybody comes at once to check in. There's that. There's also security. And then, of course, after that, you're just waiting. But, like, you've got to get through all of that. And you've got to make time for all of that. And you've got to think about all the other people who might not remember to come early anyway. And so, or might have special situations or whatever. So I was already 2 nights in a row, no sleep. I don't do well with that. I don't function well with that. Also, I don't do well with stress. Stress physically hurts me. I mean, that's not a joke. It physically hurts me. It doesn't just stress me out, like it physically hurts me. It's not a good thing. So I was dealing with that, and then we landed in Cardiff and everything was fine. My friends had asked me what time they needed to come pick me up. I had told them, although I really don't know why they asked, because they didn't show up at the time I got there. They really just kind of showed up whenever they wanted to. I'd also gotten sick while I was in Belfast, Ireland. That's another highlight. And I was getting sicker. I didn't have anything with me to take, and I didn't really have the resources to get anything. Now, I know you're thinking, well, your friend bailed you out. Yes, they did. But that was for lunch that day, dinner that night, the hotel room, breakfast the next morning, and the taxi ride back. That wasn't for anything else. So I didn't want to use it for anything else because I was also trying to make sure that I was going to have enough, because if that was gone, I was SOL. And I'm not going to say, you know what that means, but that was just the truth. And so I was trying to make sure it got used for what it was meant to be used for. And I did use it for what it was meant to be used for. So I couldn't get anything, and I thought, well, I have medicine back at the house. I'll just dose up when I get back. But I also was around people who were sneezing and coughing on the whole trip. Also, this could have been a thing too. I got wet a couple of times. I didn't get under cover fast enough, and it was cold and windy. And I think that probably helped make me sick. So I was also sick, getting sicker. It was probably just a cold, but with me, a cold doesn't stay a cold because of my asthma. So it always goes from my head straight into my chest, and then it can turn into something more serious after that. And also, if I don't have a chance to rest and recover and have peace and quiet, it takes me longer to get over something. And so because of everything that was going on when I got back, which is a heck ton, it took me 2 weeks to get over this because I didn't have a chance to just rest and just be, because there was so much stuff I was dealing with anyway. So I got back. I had to wait a really long time for my friends to get there, and that was really hard because when you're sick and you don't feel well and you're exhausted, all you want to do is go home. That's all you want to do. You don't want to deal with anything else. Now, I did ask for 2 stops along the way because I didn't want to have to get back out, because at that point I didn't know for sure what it was or what it wasn't, and I just was trying to think about, less infection, if you will. My friends finally did show up. I ended up having to put my noise cancellation headphones on. This little girl got off a plane from Egypt, and she was singing some little song that's probably popular and cute to them, but it was getting on my last nerve, because when you're already exhausted, you're already sick, you're already not feeling good, like there's only so much you can take, and I'd already been through more than enough for one person to handle at that point. And that was just the tip of the iceberg, unfortunately. I wish I could say that was all that happened, but it wasn't. So I was already struggling with all that. Anyway, they finally get there. They're all happy and excited to see me and full of energy, and I am just exhausted. And, I can be an ambivert. I can be extremely extroverted and extremely loud and right there in the middle of the crowd. But I can also be very withdrawn and quiet and still and calm. And when I'm not feeling well, because I was getting sicker by the day, when I'm not feeling well, when I'm already exhausted, I'm more withdrawn and I'm quieter. And so that was, it wasn't that I wasn't thankful that they came to get me, because I was, but it's a good chunk of change between where Cardiff Airport is and where we are, because it's out in the middle of nowhere. And so, so we got back, and I honestly was just thinking they were going to help me run my 2 errands and drop me off. Well, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you want to look at it, that's not how it happened. In hindsight, I am thankful that they took me, so I'm chasing cat hairs. In hindsight, I'm thankful that they took me to get me lunch, because I didn't have anything for lunch that day. I didn't come to find out I wasn't going to have provision for lunch that day, but I didn't know that yet. So I was able to get a water, a coffee, a full meal, dessert. It was awesome, but it was also hard at the same time, because again, when I'm feeling like that, I don't want to be around a lot of people. And so we went to Cafe Carrizo, and Cafe Carrizo, as you know, on a Fried Hog is booming. And it's loud and it's packed and there's people everywhere and there's just a lot going on. And when I'm feeling like that, that's very overwhelming to me. And so I was just like, oh my goodness. And everybody wanted to talk to me, but I was so exhausted, so not feeling well, so struggling even to function. And I was just like, oh my goodness. And so I was just like, oh. And so I tried to carry on conversations with people that I could. Normally I would go say hi to everyone. I didn't do that because I was exhausted. Also because I was sick and I didn't know what it was at that point, and I didn't want to spread it to everybody that was there. And so I was just kind of sort of trying to, anyway, stay in my bubble. Again, shout out to our amazing praise and worship leader, Paul, because he was trying to have a full-on conversation with me, but I was completely out of it. I know Marsh tried to have a conversation with me as well, but I was completely out of it. So any conversations that day just weren't going to happen, because I was so incredibly not well and I was exhausted. And again, when you're sick and you're exhausted and you've already been delayed getting back by a day, and I shared this too on this trip. I shared this on one of the other videos, but I'll share it again. Belfast is very couple oriented, and everywhere I went, it wasn't just the hotel. Everywhere I went, it was always ... for two, table for two, this for two, that for two, whatever for two. And if you said you were on your own, they just looked at you like you were an alien. And like, that was hard to deal with. Also, I was really missing Matt on this trip because he would have loved it there. He also had a fascination with Titanic, and like, that was hard. Also, it was my birthday during this trip, and you don't know how you're going to handle those sometimes. You know, like, you know, because you can't help, it's human nature, but to wonder, well, if he was still here, where would we be at this point? You know, you can't help that thought crosses your mind occasionally, you know, and like, what would, you know, we be doing, and like, where would we be, and what, you know, like, what would our life, you can't stay there, but like, you can't, it's human nature to have those thoughts sometimes. And then also, this was the first trip that I was really homesick for Wales, and I was really homesick to like come home. And like, I was really missing the girls. And so like, I was reaching out to people more than I usually would because of all of that. And so I was like, just trying, you know, to reach out to my friends and my family. And I was having a hard time. And so anyway, finally after that, because I was like, oh my goodness, I don't know how much more of this I can take. And so finally, my friend was in a hurry all of a sudden and like, you know, kind of yanked me up out of there. But I was thankful for it because I was like, oh my gosh, I just couldn't take anymore. I was like, get me out. Because like when you're exhausted and you're not feeling well, and again, I go more introvert when I'm like that. And I get more, you know, my late brother Mike and I used to joke about this because we're both cancers. We get more in our shell. I just clam up literally and I get more in my shell. And I just was like, oh my gosh, I just wanted to get my stuff, get home, see the girls, and just pass out really, because I was just exhausted and really not feeling well. And so we went to go to Lidl's first because I needed to do the weekly shop, and I was only getting what I needed. But unfortunately, I had two credit cards I could have used. I wasn't sure about the balance on one. I thought this one would be able to cover it, but for whatever reason, it was declined. And I was like, well, crap, because I didn't have anything else. And so I was like, and he didn't go in with me, so he couldn't just be like, you know, oh, I'll cover it, you can pay me back. So I came back out. I literally had to just leave the bag, sat there and walk out, which was really embarrassing and really hard. And so, which is one of the reasons why when I always share about do something to help someone else this week, I always say, if you can, if someone's struggling in the weekly shop, pay it forward. And it's not just because that happened to me. I was saying that before that ever happened to me, but there are times when people do need help, genuinely need help. And so I was like, oh my goodness. And so I got back out to the car, and he just kind of was, you know, a bit confused. And anyway, the thing I don't understand is this. I do understand having to reach out to your partner and say, hey, is it okay if we help this person right now? I get that. But I don't understand, I guess, why it took so long to do it. Because, like, my thinking would have been this. Get on the phone, reach out, ask right now, and just be like, is this okay, is this not? Go in, pay the tab, get the bag while we're there, and then go to the next errand. But that's not what happened. We went to the next errand. Thanks be to the NHS, I could get that because that was free. Now, if I was going to get my prescriptions in the States, I wouldn't have been able to. So that was another one of those thank you, Abba moments. So I was able to get those. So we got back in the car, got back, and I was afraid that he was going to just drop me off at his house and make me walk. And I said, listen, I am too exhausted and I am too unwell to get all this from the car to my house. I said, can you please drop me off at my house? He's like, oh, I was going to. I said, okay, thank God. Because I was just like, I just can't do that again. And he got all the big heavy stuff, thank God, because I was too shattered. I was just too shattered physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, financially. I was too shattered to do it. And I just needed to get into sanctuary and to safe haven and get back to the TARDIS, because I was exhausted and I was so sick, and I'd already been around way more people than I could handle, and I'd already spoken way more than I felt like I could, and it was just too much already at that point. I was very thankful. He got me dropped off. I got in. I treated the girls. You know, I was like, you know, that was great. you know, did what we could, and I literally had to collapse as soon as I could because I was just wiped out. And of course, I had been messaging friends and family still at this point. And, you know, it's crazy to me because some people receive those messages and either didn't respond or just did like a little prayer heart, you know, emoji response to it or something. Or some people received them and didn't respond at all. Or some people received them and eventually responded. And it wasn't anything bad necessarily. But it's interesting because some people received them and didn't receive them well and didn't respond to them well and didn't understand that I was a friend, again, in crisis, reaching out for help, asking for prayer, asking for brainstorming, asking for encouragement, and asking for it to be uplifted. They just didn't track. And so I had a message come in from one friend, which it was not her. You know, I was not upset with her. I was upset. It just, the message broke. Like, there's always something. It was the message that broke the camel's back. It was like the straw that broke the camel's back. And I just, that was it. That was it. That was because a person can only handle so much. And a person can only handle so much for so long when it's just Abba, themselves, and the girl cats. Because everyone else in our friend group has a partner and or a fiance and or spouse, kids and or grandkids. They're not on their own. I am the only one where it's just Abba, just the girl cats, and just me. And it has been that way since Matt has been gone. You know, and that's going to be 12 years this December. And sometimes a person just needs Jesus with skin on, someone to come along and be the hands and feet of Jesus, someone to come along and just sit and just listen. Because what anyone wants, what all of us wants, is just to be seen, to be heard, and to be loved. That's it. It's that simple. And unfortunately, that was it for me. I didn't handle it well, and I said this on the last message, and I own my part again. I didn't handle it well. So I started to send an audio, and then I just got too frustrated to even continue that, so I stopped it. I decided to delete my messages, I decided to exit the group, and I decided to put the group in archive because I was frustrated, and because I was upset, and because I was aggravated, but also because I was struggling with everything, also because I was in crisis, and also because I needed help, and I felt like I wasn't getting it, and I was very frustrated by that. So I didn't handle that well. I own that. I didn't handle that well. I did eventually request, I think on that day, if I can remember. I can't look at things because all the devices are being used, but I think I asked that we meet face-to-face in person. Well, that's when I found out one of my friends had COVID. That would have been nice to know before I went to Ireland, because we were hanging out and we were in each other's space and we were like around each other a lot. So that would have been nice to know. Also, between that Freitag and Saturday morning, sorry, I have a cat hair in my mouth. Just to add some more craziness to the mix, I got a message from one of the elders at the church requesting a meeting. Worst timing ever. I had just got home, sick as a dog, exhausted, all this going on, and I'm like, you're joking me, right? And like insistent that we meet. And I'm just like, there's no way, man. Like I was barely functional. I was like, this isn't gonna happen. At least not like when you want it to. And so I was just like, so I was dealing with that. Also, my stepmom had led me to believe that my dad was not okay. And then she would not message me back at all. So I was freaking out about that. I did get messages back from my friends about not not all of them, 2 of them, about what I had done. I didn't respond to them well the first time, but eventually I finally got around to actually responding to them properly, but unfortunately I think by then it was too late. I still don't think it's too late, but I think some people have already decided that it is, which is unfortunate. And so I was like, oh my gosh. So anyway, so then I woke up on Saturday morning with no smell, was freaking out because I just found out a friend had COVID, and I was like, oh my gosh. And so I was praying like crazy. Finally my smell came back. I never lost my taste, but I was like, oh my goodness. So then I had to find a way to get a test, like a test kit. Well, I'll be honest with you, I haven't had a test kit anywhere near me since I first came across. And I was like, oh my goodness, because it's just not something that I don't focus on it. Like anyway, Abba is bigger. Abba is bigger than the stinking Rona. And anyway, it's not how I live my life. And so I was just like, oh my goodness. Well, I had something for dinner that night for Freitag. I had something for breakfast that morning. I think dinner the next night, nothing for lunch, and I think something for breakfast, and then I was going to be out. And so I was desperately trying to get food. So in addition to all this, I spent 3 days on the phone with my bank in the States. One, because of what had happened on my trip, because Booking.Dope did nothing, no thing. Also, which you've covered that in the video, 2 days trying to order from Tesco's. Never had an issue with that before, but for whatever reason, could not get that to happen. 2 days on the phone with the bank, 2 days on the phone with them. 2 days trying to order Morrison's in a row. Never tried to order through them, but shouldn't have had an issue, but still same issue. And so the normal place I would order a test from, I'll just be honest with you, would be Boots, because I have a Boots card, and that's who I ordered it from when I first got here, and it just made sense to me. But because of whatever that issue was, I couldn't order a test from Boots. So I had to find a way to order another test. So that delayed that. And I was like, oh my goodness. And it was just like, it's just too much for a person to deal with. And so finally though, and then I had one friend ask for space. And so I said, okay, so I gave the space. But unfortunately, in that space, that one friend decided to go to the elders. Instead of sitting down with me face to face and having a conversation, which is, yeah, that's not how this should have gone down. I said this in the last video, and I'll just say it again. I'm not going to go through everything in the last video again, but this has not been handled well, and it's not been handled biblically. All that needed to happen was for the friends and I to sit down and have a conversation. Now, I was told that couldn't happen because the one had the Rona, but here's the thing. If you can text on the phone, you can do a video chat. That's all I'm saying, for however long you could do it. I get it because I have been horribly, horribly, horribly ill before, so I do get it. And it wasn't that I wasn't sympathetic, because I was, and I was praying, because if I tell you I'm praying for you, I'm praying for you. I didn't involve that one friend who was sick in a lot of the messages because I was trying to give them space to heal, because I knew that I needed that during this time and didn't really get it. Which is why it took me 2 weeks to get over this, because I kept getting, everything just kept hitting from all sides, and it was like, oh my goodness. So all that we needed to do was just sit down and have a conversation face to face. That's all that needed to happen. That's all that needed to happen. And I even had one friend say that the only reason they shared was to try to get me help. Man, I wish I could believe that. I wish I could. But the thing about that is the other friend said to me about the one friend, don't ever cross this friend. And so it just didn't, in my gut, it just didn't feel that was why that was done, was to try to get help. Sorry, Wanda. Hey, sis. Love you too. I didn't realize that you were on. Thank you for tuning in. So I was just like, I don't, because the thing is, there had to have been more than one elder. And the one elder she chose to share it with was probably not the one that I would have chosen for sure. So because I really personally believe that one's had an issue with me since day one. Now, didn't ever come to me and say anything. And of course, with the meeting, which is all they hounded, by the way, they hounded the meeting for 2 weeks. Nothing but the meeting. The meeting. I'm glad that that's all you cared about, was the meeting. With the elders, mind you, not with the friends, because I'm still asking for the meeting with the friends to happen. And I was like, oh my goodness. And to me, that was a bit ridiculous, because when your focus is more about having a meeting with someone than about, are they okay? I've known people who have been sick, who people have gone and visited them. They've gone and gotten things for them. They've gone and taken things to them. They've gone and checked in on them. They've sent them messages. They've made sure they're okay. That didn't happen. Also, during this time, I lost a family member. My Auntie Joyce passed away. Nothing. That didn't happen either. That's not okay, guys. That's not okay when your focus is so much on meeting. And literally, they hounded me for 2 weeks about this meeting. For 2 weeks straight. Nothing but. And so I am very much like my earthly dad. I am very stubborn. I am very hard-headed. I am very much like, I don't like confrontation. I'll be honest with you about that. I shared that in previous videos, but also I've been through these meetings before. And I'm just, now if Abba had said go, I would have gone, but he didn't. He didn't, and I personally believe he was protecting me. I really do, because I finally got them to share with me what they wanted to meet with me about, which took 2 weeks, by the way, of my asking. It shouldn't have been that way. And so the first thing dealt with a video back in March. It's August now. Like, why didn't you come to me sooner? They gave me the date. I asked for the title because the date didn't help me find it. I've tried to find it with the date. I can't find it. I asked for the title. Never got a response. I also asked for the comments that were in concern. Never got a response. The only thing I can ever remember doing is promoting the church. That's the only thing I can ever remember doing. Now, like I said, Abba already had me going back and rewatching my videos because he knew this was coming. And so I have been. Obviously haven't gotten to that one yet, nowhere near that one. And I started with the ones on YouTube, so there are 44 before that are on Facebook. I didn't get to say that earlier. Hi Facebook land, hi YouTube land, or hi YouTube land, hi Instagram land. I put them different this time. It's Facebook, Insta, YouTube this time. Anyway, I didn't get to say that earlier. But yeah, I tried to and there should be more than that on Facebook, but someone has, this is before I ever crossed the pond, so don't hear what I'm not saying. And I addressed that in a video I just recently watched, but someone has gone back on and deleted some of them. I don't know why, and I don't know how, because I set them to not delete, but anyway. But those people will get to answer to Abba for doing that. But that's a whole nother, that was before I even came across. But yeah, you gotta question where someone's focus is when all they want to do is hound this meeting. Also, I didn't share this before, but I feel really strongly led to share this now. I did finally get, and I'm very thankful for this, I did finally get a parcel delivered of groceries from the local food bank and from the local church, and I am incredibly thankful for that. However, that parcel did not have a lot of protein in it. So at some point, I was going to need to go get some protein. So I was on my way one afternoon to go get some protein at one of the local shops up by here. And literally, I'm not going to say names, but one of the elders literally flew out from his place of business and was yelling after me about the meeting. That is not okay, and that is not acceptable. A person should be allowed to go get the protein that they need that was not included in the parcel without having to be yelled at or shouted at out on the street about this meeting. That is not okay. And of course, Abba just said, keep walking. He said, keep walking, don't engage. And I was like, oh my gosh. That's not okay. It's not okay. Was I well enough to do that walk? No, but I needed protein. So I forced myself to do it, go get it, and come back. That is really, really not okay. That was not handled well either, or biblically. I'm pretty sure it doesn't say in the Bible, go chase after them, go yell at them, go shout at them. I'm pretty sure it doesn't say that. Like, that just doesn't make, and so it got to question. You also got to question why only one person was focused on in this whole entire back and forth conversations with the elders to be considered vulnerable. Why only one person was focused on to be considered vulnerable. I don't like to focus on this, but I will just remind you guys, I am a widow. And the church is supposed to take care of the widows. And I mean the church as the whole, as in one church, one body, supposed to take care of the widows. It is Abba, the Girl Cats, and myself. That is it. How much more vulnerable can you get? Abba called me, I came, I've been obedient. Like, how much more vulnerable can you get? Also, I shared everything I was going through, everything I was struggling with people that I trusted. How much more vulnerable can you get? Like, I was open, raw, real, and honest. How much more vulnerable can you get, honestly? Like, I don't understand that. I really don't. I also don't understand because that person had only been at the church for a few more weeks than myself. You know, the only thing that I can think is because I'm from the States. I'm from America. And that person is from somewhere in the UK. That's the only thing I can think. That's the only thing I'm left with. That's the only thing I'm left with. And that's not okay. That's not okay. Because whether you want to see it this way or not, that's racism. It's very racist. You know, it's not okay. You know, I recently learned this, and I didn't know it prior to this, and I know you're probably going to say you're joking me, right? But I didn't. I really didn't. But I recently learned people here can't stand people from the States. They can't stand people from America. But the thing that confuses me a bit is they said the only thing they hate worse is people from England. And yet, one person was chose to be shepherded and protected by the flock over another. That's not okay. And nowhere in the Bible does it say that that's okay. And nowhere in the Bible does it say that we're supposed to do it that way. It's not okay. It's really not. Because the person that was chosen to be most vulnerable in this situation has people all around them. You know, they have a partner, they have a family, they have people all around them. It's not just them on their own. And yet, here we are, Abba, the Girl Cats, and me. Literally, guys, that's it. That's it. If it weren't for Abba and the Girl Cats, I don't know what I would do. Because sometimes it doesn't feel like I have anybody else. And I really thought I had finally found not only a church community, but a church. I finally thought I had found my tribe. I finally thought I had found friends that I could not only go through this journey with, but that I could grow old with. And that I could see their families grow and change. What am I guilty of? I'm guilty of asking for prayer. I'm guilty of asking for people to help me brainstorm. I'm guilty for asking for encouragement. I'm guilty of asking for uplifting. And I'm guilty of sharing and being vulnerable and being open and real and raw and honest with what I'm going through. That's what I'm guilty of. Did I handle it well? No, but I've already owned up to that. And I owned up to it with my friends as well. And if they would have given me the chance, if they would still give me the chance to sit down and have a conversation face to face, I would love to hear what's on their hearts. I would love to just sit and listen. And then when they're done, to just talk about everything one by one. But I don't know that I'm going to get that chance. As far as the meeting with the elders goes, I don't have that chance any longer because it was taken away from me. It literally went, first of all, like I said last week, steps 1 and 2 were skipped entirely. But it literally went from the chance to sit down and have a conversation face to face with the elders to you're now excommunicated from your church. And you are asked not to come to the church for any reason. It literally went from that to that, like 0 to 90, without anything in person. It was all text, it was all WhatsApp, it was all emails, and that was it. And so now all of a sudden I've lost my church community, I've lost my church, I've lost my friends. And here we are. You know, it's Abba, the girls, and me. Again. Again. And like I shared last week, the one thing that it teaches me to be wary about trusting people. It teaches me to be wary about sharing. It teaches me to be wary about opening up. And Abba has always said, just be honest, just be real, just be you, just share, because it'll help other people. But it's, you know, after this, I don't know. You know, and I had another friend who was really concerned. She's like, oh my gosh. She's like, are you going to leave? And I said, no. I said, because Abba's callings haven't changed. Abba's calling locations haven't changed. I'm still here for the same reason I was before. You know, would I like to still repair those friendships? Yes, I would. That's why I would still personally love to sit down, let you share what you want to share, get it off your chest, off your heart. I'll just listen, and then we can talk about everything one by one and see where we go from there. But now, as far as not going back to the church, that option was taken away from me. It was completely taken away. And it was a choice made by 2 of the elders. Now, I have no idea how many there are, but I don't think that's biblical either. I think it should have been all the elders having a meeting and talking about it and discussing it and thinking about it and praying about it and waiting for Abba's response, not waiting for man's response. Because I'm going to tell you right now, this is not of Abba. This is of man. And I know I said that on the last video, but it's true. Because I was there for 3 Sundays and Abba was like, this is where I want you. This is where I want you. You can't argue with that. Like, you know, and it's really hard too because, like, I really loved finally being able to not only be in a church community and have that fellowship, right? And to be able to praise and worship before I was even on the team and to learn with you guys, right? But I also loved volunteering. Like, I also loved volunteering, you know, at, you know, Warm Welcome and Dementia Cafe and Cafe Carrizo and helping out with the youth. And then I loved being on the praise and worship team because, you know, that was something I did back in college. I didn't know if Abba was ever going to open that door again, but he did, you know, and all of that has just been snatched away. And then I had a really not nice message from another person in the church outside of this friend group. And I was like, are you even looking at what you're sending to me right now? Because it was, well, I'm really worried about you because you have the most to lose. That's just not nice. And then I had said something about there being other churches. And instead of saying, oh yeah, that's right, there are other churches, they said, oh yeah, I forgot, Americans, again, Americans, not you, Americans don't mind to travel. And so I responded back and I said, no, I, because I'm a person, not just an American, I'm a person. Abba created me in his image, I have a name. And so I said, I don't mind traveling because I travel all the time. Like, it just was such a rude message. And I thought, and it was weird. It was just weird because if you knew who it was from, you'd be like, huh? Anyway, and I just, like, it's not okay, guys. Just because it's been like that for years and years and years and years and years, and just because that's what you were brought up to believe, it's not okay. It's not okay. And somebody has got to break the cycle, and somebody has got to put a stop to it because it's really not okay. You know, and and that was just the highlights of what I was going through. I've had other things I was dealing with. I've had people shout things at me as I'm walking up and down the street lately. I've had people coming by saying horrible things about my windowscape, this past month, like, it just, it's not been fun to deal with. There's just been a lot going on, and it's just been too much for one person to deal with. Even with Abba and the girl cats, it's just too much for one person to deal with. Just one of those things, just a few of those things would have been too much for one person to deal with. But all of them combined, no freaking way, man. It's too much. It's too much. So again, I will say this. What I would have done, had I been a friend in this group that wasn't myself, what I would have done is, oh my gosh, she must really not be okay. She must really be struggling right now. She must really be hurting right now. She must really be frustrated right now and aggravated and upset. And she must be at her last limit. And so what I would have done is I would have reached out in care and compassion and kindness and been like, oh my gosh, are you okay? Because this doesn't seem like you. You don't seem like you're okay. Maybe we should get together and talk. That's what I would have done if I weren't me in that friend group. That's not what happened. That's not what happened. Now, I did get one very kind, caring, compassionate message, and I am incredibly thankful and grateful for that. But then I got another message that was not so much, and should have given me the indication of what was going to happen next, but unfortunately didn't, because I still wasn't in the right headspace to receive those messages or respond to them at that time. Now, the other friend didn't get into any of this because they, again, were very, very ill at the time. Not that I wasn't, but they were very ill with the Rona. I still don't know. And I do kind of sort of wonder, like, if they were able to sit on their own with Abba, think about it and pray about it without any other influence from anyone else, I really wonder what two of the people in this friend group would really think and what they would really want to do and respond back. Because I feel that they've been told to do something else. And because of their personalities, they're just, okay, which is not okay either, because that's manipulation. I don't care how you look at it. I don't care who's doing it. It's manipulation, and it's not okay. They should be allowed to think for themselves, make their own decisions, pray, and ask Abba, what do I do? How do I move forward through this? They don't need someone else telling them what to do, whether it be an elder or whether it be a friend. They don't need that. They need to be able to make up their own decision about what they want to do. That's just not okay. Either way. Now, had that happened, I think I would have responded completely differently. I think I would have had a moment like I'm having right now, and I'd been like, oh my gosh, they're showing me the grace of Jesus, and they're willing to forgive me and work through this. And I think I would have been like overwhelmed, but in a good way. And I think then we could have sat down and had that conversation, and we could have worked through it, right? And I would still have my church community. I would still have my church. I would still have my friends. I would still be able to be there. I'd still be able to volunteer and to serve. But instead, when a friend asked for space and I gave it, instead of taking that space, that friend went straight to the elders. And this just escalated from there, completely out of control. Because, again, it's not been handled well, and it's not been handled biblically, because the other 4 things on the list that they wanted to talk to me about were all things that were personal within that group of friends. And they needed to be dealt with that group of friends, not with the elders and not with the church. Again, this isn't my first meeting. And I think the reason Abba didn't say go from the get-go was because he knew and he was protecting me. You don't call a person to a meeting when they've just got home, they're sick and they're exhausted. Like, that was the worst possible time. And yet it makes me wonder, did they want me to come in that state, exhausted, tired, sick, so that I'd be more malleable, I'd be more easy to manipulate, I'd be more easy to control, I'd be more easy to talk at instead of to or with, to be put in my place, to get my muzzle put on my mouth so I can't speak anymore, to be told, because I really think one of the people that's called the meeting, I really think they wanted to put me in my place since day one. But the thing is, they don't know me. All they see is that racism. All they see is that hate for Americans. That's all they see. They don't see that this one might be different. They don't see that. So instead of protecting the entire flock, instead of shepherding the entire flock, instead of protecting the entire herd, they isolated this one out and said, nah, that one's an easy scapegoat. Let's pick her off. And that's exactly what they did. And it's not okay. It's not okay. It's really not okay. But what can you do? I know that I was expected to go quietly, and I was expected not to have anything to say or any thoughts or any opinions or just talk about it or to share about it or to say anything about it. But I guess you don't really know me. I don't go quietly. Abba gave me my voice before I crossed the pond, and I will not wear a muzzle. I will not be talked at. I will not be put in my place. Again, I don't need to be. I remind you, I answer to Abba and Abba alone, not man, period. So, again, all that had to happen was for my friends to show me some grace instead of what did happen, to be willing to sit down and have a meeting face to face. And then none of the other would have ever happened. Now, is Abba going to do something with this? Oh, yeah. Yeah. Because he always works it for his glory, his honor, his praise, and ultimately for our good. Now, did it feel good when it was happening? No. Has it felt good during it? No. Does it feel good now? No. But it will eventually. Because he'll do something to turn it around. So, and the fact that people are so blinded and can't even see what really happened, what was really, and I did have one friend reach out and say that they accepted my apology, that they forgave me, and I'm very incredibly thankful for that. But then they still couldn't see the rest of what was going on, and it was very frustrating to me because in one of the things they said the evidence is there. What evidence? The evidence of the fact that I'm human? The evidence of the fact that I'm not perfect and I don't have it all together and I don't have all the answers? The evidence of the fact that I do have her story, a history, a past, a testimony? The evidence of the fact that because I'm human and because I don't always get it right and sometimes I struggle and sometimes I have a hard time and sometimes I go through things? The evidence of the fact that I needed my friends? The evidence of the fact that I was asking for prayer? The evidence of the fact that I was asking for brainstorming to help figure this out? The evidence of the fact that I was asking to be encouraged, because sometimes the encourager needs to be encouraged? The evidence of the fact that I was asking to be uplifted, because sometimes the person who uplifts everybody else needs to be uplifted? The evidence of that? Is that what you're talking about? Because honestly, that's my only crime. That's my only crime. That I didn't just sweep everything under the rug and act like everything was okay. Well, I hate to break it to you guys, but eventually your rugs are going to turn into mountains. And then the levee's going to break. It's not going to be pretty. I grew up in a household being taught that you have to sweep everything under the rug and act like everything's okay. And I know now, I got to fix this. I know now that that is not the truth. And I know now that that is not the way to handle things. I got to plug this in. I know now that that's not the way it should be. But when I grew up that way, I didn't know that. But now I've learned that's not healthy. That's not the way that you handle things. That's not the way that you deal with things. And, maybe that is a cultural difference, but it still doesn't make it right. It doesn't say that the way that UK handles it versus the way that the States handles it, that either side is right. I mean, And I said this last week too. We wonder why people don't want to come be a part of the church. It's things like this. It's things like this. If we can't even get along with each other, why would they want to bother? Like, why would they want to bother? I can't blame them, honestly. I mean, I don't understand it. Like, I just don't understand it, you know? And it was so bad with this one elder at one point that I thought I was going to have a meeting. And then, like I said, I shared this in the other video. Then, like I said, one day, all of a sudden, they, you know, because I had been praying and praying and praying, and they came up to me, and they put their arm around me, and they were joking, and they were all, you know, chummy, and it's like we were best friends. And, of course, I, on the inside, was just like, what the heck is happening right now? Like, are you, like, did you get body snatched? Like, you know, anyway. And I just thought, well, Abba had to have answered it and taken care of it. But obviously not, because, you know, I really feel, and I believe this, that this person's had an issue since day one. But what I don't understand is, instead of keeping the old stereotypes and the old, you know, hatred and the old racism and the old, all the old ways, why not just come early on, sit down with me, you know, even with somebody else, and get to know me and say, you know what, this one's different. And just because I was raised this way to believe that everybody from the States is horrible and terrible and awful and da-da-da-da and all the things you could say, maybe I can break that generational curse, starting with me, and teach my kids and my grandkids down that that's not the way it should be. Because I hate to break it to you guys, but Abba said all. And all means all people, okay? All. He sent his one and only son, Jesus, to die for all. Not just some, not just a few, not just certain ones from certain countries, all. And when we get there and we have the Feast of the Lamb, there are going to be people from every nation, every tribe, and every tongue, and they're going to be all different colors. And you're going to have let go of your racism by then, or you're not going to be able to handle it. I just, you know, like, I did expect some people here to not be okay with the fact that I'm from the States, but I didn't expect them to be believers. Again, you know, this is the second time that's happened to me. It's not okay, guys. It's not okay. You know, it breaks my heart, and I know if it breaks my heart, it breaks Abba's heart. I don't understand. I don't understand. I don't. So again, if my friends had just shown me some grace, if they just show me some compassion, if they just been like, oh my gosh, it's obvious that you're not okay and you need help and that you're hurting and you're frustrated and you're aggravated. Because I want to tell you, when I found out what they wanted to meet with me about after hounding them back for 2 weeks, because they hounded me for 2 weeks, I was not only was I furious because it was evident that someone had shared messages that they should not have shared, that were meant to be personal and private between friends. They were shared in confidence in private. How do I know that this happened? Because that friend had sent one of my own audio messages back to me. How do I know that this friend wasn't sending messages just to get help? Because this particular message had nothing to do with asking for help. It had to do with sharing about what was going on in my life at the moment. So it's really hard for me to believe when you say you sent the messages to try to get me help. I don't think so. And I hate to break it to you, and I don't know how to explain it to you. But Abba tells me what's going on. Abba tells me what's what. Do you think it was an accident that audio message that was mine, that I sent to you and other friends in confidence in our group, do you think that got sent to me by accident? No, because Abba wanted me to know what was going on. He's like, you need to know what's happening. And I was like, oh my goodness. And then when I got the list of things that wanted to be met about, I was furious, but I was also hurt. And I was also like deeply like sad, because like that trust had been broken. Like broken. Those were messages shared with friends in confidence that were not meant to be shared with anyone else. and should not have ever been shared with anyone else. The only thing I can remember asking the church was just to pray. And about the situation about being stuck. That was it. I can't remember asking the church anything else, and I wouldn't have. So why, you know, and if you don't want to answer to me, fine, but you do get to answer to Abba one day. So why did you send them? Why did you really send them? Because you know why you really sent them. And why did you call the meeting with the elders? Why did you really call the meeting? You know, do you not think it was an abuse of your power and your authority just because you were frustrated and mad and upset yourself and hurt yourself and sad yourself that you called that meeting? And why out of all the elders you could have chosen from would you chose the one you knew had beef with me? Why? And again, if you don't want to answer to me, fine. But one day you're going to have to answer to Abba. Because I own what I didn't handle well. I own that. In hindsight, because hindsight's always 20/20, in hindsight, I should have just not messaged you guys at all that week. Just shouldn't have. And I know you're thinking, well, you'd still be stuck in Belfast. No, I wouldn't. My last option was going to be to reach out to Matt's mom and ask for help. But no offense to Jeannie, please don't hear what I'm not saying, but I didn't want to do that because the backlash to that is never pleasant. You should be able to reach out to friends or family and ask for help and not have backlash. You just should. But it really makes me rethink trust. It makes me rethink friendships. It makes me rethink how much I share. You know, it makes me rethink all of that. Because in hindsight being 20/20, I should have just never shared anything with any of y'all that week. And then this wouldn't have happened. You know, but I can't go back and I can't change it. All I can do is try to learn from it and move forward. So again, all I can say is this. If my friends had shown me some care and some compassion for how I did not handle things, but to realize that was a cry for help, because it was a cry for help. That's all it was. It was a cry for help. So they could have just realized it was a cry for help, reached out with care and compassion. We could have sat down, had a face-to-face. The one that was sick could have done a video message. That's all that would have needed to happen. It never needed to go to the elders, should have never gone to the elders. Again, Abba caught you. You got caught by Abba. But you won't own up to it. You won't. Y'all are all like brainwashed and you're all drinking the Kool-Aid. Put the cup down, wake up and smell the coffee. Okay? Like, honestly. Yeah. Because that message that got sent back to me was not a message requesting help. It was a message about what was going on in my life during that time. And that should have never been shared with anyone outside that group for any reason. You cannot tell me that you shared only to get me help when Abba caught you and shared it with me, that you shared that message. That message was a message of, I am struggling right now. Oh my gosh, I need help, as in I need help from my friends, as in I need prayer. I need brainstorming to try to figure this out. I need encouragement. I need uplifting. That should have never been shared with the elders. Never, ever, ever. None of those other 4 concerns should have ever been shared with the elders. And I believe that's why Abba was like, no, you're not going to go have this conversation. You're not going to go have this meeting, because none of this pertains to them. None of this pertains to him. So, and it was not their business. It was personal and private and confidential. So, again, this has not been handled well, and this has not been handled biblically. Anyway. Can't do anything about it. It's done. And even if I wanted to go have a conversation with the elders, which I don't, but even if I did, they've shut that door. Not Abba, but man. Period. So, it is still out there on the table for my friends and I to sit down and have a face-to-face conversation to let you guys share what's on your hearts. I'll sit, I'll listen, and then we can deal with them one by one. But again, I would rather not do it here because I don't want to put the cats through this. With everything we've been through since getting stuck till today has been way more than one person can handle. And yet, it's Abba, the girl cats, and me. And that's it. That's it. So, I'm, putting that out there, and that's that. I haven't messaged you guys apart from responding to the one message I got from the one friend the other day, and I probably won't, to be honest, because I've got to move forward with my life. But just know that the offer is still on the table, to sit down with the friends, mind you, have a conversation face to face, let you share what's on your hearts, get that out, let me listen, and then we'll tackle them one by one, and we'll see where we can go from there. Now, the fact that I'm still willing to do that after everything should speak volumes to you, but for some reason, it doesn't. It doesn't, because even when I tried to share with those 3 videos, it wasn't received the way it was meant to be, and it wasn't received well by one of the friends, and so anyway, so I can't do anything else. All I can do is go forward. All I can continue to do is be obedient to what Abba's called me to do, and just continue to go forward. Now, thankfully, not because of this, but just friends in general have invited me to a few other churches recently. And so I have started visiting. I did go visit this past Sunday. I'm not going to tell you where because it's not really of import as of yet. I'm not going to tell you where I'm going either because I have a feeling that somebody would, try to, I don't know, reach out to them and be like, because, anyway. Because I was pretty much given that threat from the first church I was part of since I've been in the UK. I'm not going to say their name again, but I was just like, how ridiculous do you sound right now? Like, we're one church, we're one body, anyway. So, and I'm just trusting Abba to see where he wants me to go, but it's going to make me really cautious. Because of what happened with the first church I was a part of in the UK, I was really cautious when I came to this church. And so I didn't share a whole lot. I did share everything eventually, and I never lied about anything. I was straightforward, I was upfront, I was honest the whole time about everything. But I was much slower in the delivery this time because of what had happened the first time. Going into a third church in as many years, almost, well, because technically I was almost at this last one for 2 years, so. But still, it just makes me really cautious, and I shouldn't have to be that way. And it makes me really gun shy, and it makes me really like, oh my gosh, do I tell them why I'm here? Obviously I have to be honest because Abba won't let me lie. I can't. I just can't do it. And it's not even like a Jack Dalton on MacGyver kind of thing. Like, I just cannot. He won't let me do it. But I'm okay with that because I wouldn't want to be someone who was okay with that because that's not okay. And that, it's all about character and integrity, and we're meant to be, he created us in his image, and the goal is day by day on our journey, he's transforming us to be more and more like him and more like his son. I don't know about you, but I want to be on that journey with him, and I want to be that way. And so one of those things means I have to think about character, I have to think about integrity, I cannot lie. So, it makes me really gun shy going forward because, I had some great friends at the first church too. Now I've been able to stay in touch with some of them, but to be fair, some of them just disowned me, and why? Because sometimes I'm too much for people, and sometimes I'm not everybody's cup of tea. And also because the stereotypes that people have around people from the States here, which is really unfortunate and really sad because not every person fits every stereotype that comes from every country. Yes, when I get excited about something, I get loud. That's my personality. It's not because I'm from the States. You know, I'm not where I'm from. Just like you're not where you're from. I am what Abba created me to be, and that is all. And I'm not going to apologize for it. And I'm not going to explain it either because I shouldn't have to. And the crazy thing about this too is I did reach out because I had to have some kind of support system because my support system was literally being yanked out from underneath me like that. I did reach out to friends about this, and I did share because I needed people's input. I needed people to pray. I needed their, you know, thoughts, comments, concerns, questions. And the funny thing is, the majority of them, we were all on the same page, right? And they could not only sympathize, but empathize with what I was going through. And they could see it the same way I did. But I had one friend who didn't. Now, we're still friends, but I had one friend who was completely on the side of the church, and she was outside this friend group, in case you're wondering. And that was really hard. That was really, really hard to deal with. And I was just like, oh my goodness, like, seriously? I was like, how do you not see this for what it is? And granted, I know she's not me, and she hasn't been through what I've been through since I've been here, and even before I came across, but like, it just makes it really hard. It just makes it really hard. And sometimes it makes me wonder, you know, because like, I'll be honest, when he first started tickling me with, you know, the latter part of my callings, which is church planting, when he started tickling me with that, I was like, Abba, me? I was like, me? Of all people? I was like, are you sure you've got the right girl? Because I was just like, because I didn't know anything at that point about church planting, and I was like, you know, like, I didn't want to be like Sarah and laugh at him, but like, honestly, I was just like, what? You know, but it starts to make me, after having gone through this now a second time, even though each situation was vastly different, but there is one core theme in there, and it's racism. It's racism, plain and simple. I know you guys don't want to call it that because you're thinking, well, you Caucasian, I'm Caucasian. But it's racism, plain and simple, because your issue with me is because I'm from the States, period. I open my mouth and I speak, and you hear I don't sound like you hear I sound like I'm from the States, and immediately a wall goes up, whether you want to admit it or not. So there is one thing that goes between the two that is common, and that's racism. And it's not okay. It's not okay. Because Abba said all people, all people, all people. So anyway, so it made me wonder if maybe he did lay that on my heart because he wants somebody to finally get it, you know, to finally get it, and to finally have a church that literally, that meets people where they're at, that welcomes them and accepts them in no matter what, no matter race, color, creed, tongue, where they're from, you know, that just meets them where they're at, shows up, listens, is Jesus with skin on, hands and feet of Jesus, lets them be seen, lets them be heard, lets them be loved. It's that simple. That's all any of us want. Whether we even know we want it or not, that's all we want. So, you know, it started to make me wonder, sorry, my tummy's starting to get hungry. It started to make me wonder, and maybe that's one of the reasons he laid it on my heart, because he knew I was going to go through this. And the unfortunate thing is, it usually takes me 3 times to get something, and he usually takes me through something 3 times. Well, this was time number 2, which unfortunately means it may yet happen again, which I'm not looking forward to, because sometimes these things just aren't pleasant to go through. Because it hasn't been. I mean, why do you think it took me so long to get well? Because they were constantly hounding me for 2 weeks about this meeting. Well, if you feel well enough to meet with the others, then you feel well enough to meet with us. And what they didn't understand, I gotta fix this. It didn't give me a chance to. What they didn't understand was that oh shoot, I didn't turn it on. What they didn't understand was that they didn't, I didn't get a chance to put it in low power mode. It only gives you a second and then it doesn't. They didn't do it in the right order. That's why I say it hasn't been handled well. It hasn't been handled biblically. And what needed to happen was the friends did need to meet first. Period. The elders should have never been involved. Bottom line, they just shouldn't have been. The focus shouldn't have been for 2 weeks about the meeting. The focus should have been, about a member of the body. Not all of the focus, but it was like I was already kicked out before I was kicked out, if that makes any sense. It's like the flock went that way, and one of the sheep went, and there I was, out, shivering in the cold on my own. On my own. It was like they'd already made the decision before they even made the decision. Other people, when they're not well, they get visited by people. People stop in and check on them. They bring them stuff. They see how they are. They, send them messages. That didn't happen. And then also with the loss of a family member, also with my dad being on the verge of, either being dead or dying, and me not knowing, nothing, guys, nothing. Lost a family member, nothing. It's like they just already decided, well, she's already on her own anyway, and she's not from here, so yeah, she's a good scapegoat. Let's just kick her out. I mean, honestly, that's basically what it was, and it's not okay, and it's got to stop. It's got to stop somewhere. So I challenge you, break the generational curse, man. Break the generational curse. As Abba would say, buck up, buttercup, and start with yourself, and really take a long, hard look at yourself, and realize your issue with me from day one wasn't that you thought I was a big cheese. It's because I'm from the States, and it's an issue of racism, and you need to break that generational curse. And things need to be handled well, and they weren't. Things need to be handled biblically, and they weren't. So these are the takeaways. The friends needed to sit down and have a conversation. The elders never needed to be involved. These are the takeaways. So anyway. All right. That's all I can do. I know it was unpleasant. I know it was uncomfortable. I know it wasn't fun. It wasn't fun for me either. Lord willing, we'll be back on next Thursday with an actual teaching video. So we can finally put this behind us anyway, because I can't keep going over it and through it. Now, I don't mind to sit down with the friends face to face, let you say what's on your heart, and then let me respond one by one, but not here, because I don't want to put the cats through it. Anywhere else would be fine. Well, we can't do it at the church because I'm not allowed to go there. So anywhere else but there. Anyway, not my decision, not Abba's decision, but man's decision. Anyway. All right, let's flip it a little bit. Let's flip the script and let's go to something positive, please. Because anyway. So just a little bit of teaching at the end, because I just can't. Before we do that, let me just officially break this tie, because I just can't do it anymore. Abba, just help me to rub shoulders with you and just to lay all this at your feet for the cross, the altar, and give it all back to you, Abba. I don't want it anymore. But it's my sincere hope and prayer that you would allow everyone involved, including the elders, to be able to see the truth in this. And I mean the hashtag TRUE/TH, because there's truth or there's consequences. Now, I shared the truth and I got the consequences. Where does that make sense? Because it doesn't. Anyway, Abba, teach them, show them in their heads, in their hearts, in their spirits, in their soul, what the truth of this really is. Your will be done in and through it here on earth as it is in heaven this day, this night, in Jesus' name. In Jesus' name, in Jesus' name, amen. Whew. I'm done. All right, I'm releasing it. All right, now I can move on to more positive things. Just quickly, because I have a phone that may die anyway, because I didn't get to put it in low power mode. It doesn't give you a very long time, and I can't anyway. This is from The Broken Way by Ann Voskamp. This was a gift from Matt's mom, Jeannie, ages back. I think it was at Christmas time, but I'm really thankful that Abba had me bring it across, because at that time I didn't know the rest of the stuff wasn't going to get to come. But I liken that to when he says, pick up your cross, leave everything behind, and follow me. And anyway, and so This was one of the few things. Or he said to the disciples before, only take what you can carry. And so this is one of the things I did get to bring part of me, and I'm very thankful for. So it's August. So 1st August 24. Let me put my glasses on because I can't see. I can sort of, but I don't want to strain my eyes because, you know, I've already been bawling and so they're already like banging. Maybe it is better to give than to receive, because it's only when we give that we receive what we truly need. Let that settle into you and start to reshape the broken pieces. Man, that is so good. And that's so on point with what I was trying to talk about earlier. Anyway, I love it. And that was Abba. That wasn't me. I didn't know it was going to be like that. This is 1st August. This is, and this was a gift from a dear friend. I'm not going to say names because I don't want, you know, anyway, any blowback from that. But anyway, this was a dear friend from Christmas. This is One Step Closer, 366 Steps in Jesus' Direction, inspired by Candace Cameron Bure. And I would still like to be able to get that friend the Bible, but I haven't been able to yet. Oh, did I go the wrong? Oh no, I went the right way, but I went the wrong way. All right. Anyway, 1st August 24. Living your best life is making sure your walk and your talk match. That takes humility. Humility to say no to yourself, and humility to admit and apologize when your walk and your talk don't match. It's bound to happen. We are, after all, only human. Oh my goodness. That is so appropriate. Thank you, Abba. That, like, I don't know any other better way to close it than that. Thank you, Abba. I will do this, though. She didn't ask me to do this, and she didn't know I was going to do it. But I got myself a birthday present, no judgment. But shout out to my dear friend, who was an author, Angela M. Herrick. This is her 2nd book she's ever written, called Project Mulligan. And this is fancy because this is the hard cover, okay? Normally I just get a paperback, but this was the only option, was to get a hardback. Anyway, but I got this for my birthday. Don't be upset if you do watch this. I have not had a chance to start reading it yet, but I am really, really, really excited about it. Can I read you the back? I'm gonna anyway. You can get it on Amazing, aka Amazon. I'll try to put it in there's only gonna be just a few notes, but I'll try to put it in the notes. Okay, here we go. Check this out. What if you could go back in time and fix your greatest regret? Would you do it? Should you do it? Sarah Breckton is a grieving mother whose son's school shooting shook their small town to its core. Daniel, the uncle of one of the victims, presents her with the opportunity to change the past, an elixir he has invented for a top secret project codenamed Mulligan, aka Project Mulligan, will allow the user's consciousness to travel back to any point in their past to save their future. However, when Sarah agrees to his plan, she finds that fixing the past is more than she bargained for, and that Daniel is not all that he seems. Anyway, if you've not ever read any of her books, I highly, highly, highly recommend them. I've got one across the way that I can't get to right now. Her first one was Devil's Cord. Then there's Project Mulligan, and then she's got the 2nd part of Devil's Cord is already out as well. You can get all of those on Amazon, so I'll put that in the notes. All right, I'm going to do the weird closeout now, and Lord willing, we'll be back on next Thursday at 1 p.m. with an actual teaching video, which I'm sure you cannot wait. Sorry again, Wanda, that I didn't see you sooner. I was focused on YouTube for a reason, so can't go into that right now, but I'll tell you about it later. If you want to know. You might not want to know. All right, YouTube, I am nice and pink because I am so warm. Anyway, Lord willing, we'll see you next Thursday. Stay well, healthy, and blessed. Take care. God bless. Peace out. All right, bye for now. Bye, bye, bye. Okay.